Welcome back to Laser's Woodshop. I'm going to start another new project today. This is going to be a game table. It's going to be a game table and it's going to be all made out of poplar. I'm going to stain it with a sort of an oak looking stain. But it's all going to be poplar. The base is 1 inch and it's going to have some embroidery on the top. I'll show you a picture of it a little bit later in the video, or a design sketch-up video of it. And today I went back to the lumber yard and got these boards. But again, another quick note about the lumber yard. I thought that I saw some boards, some poplar boards over there that were 1 inch thick and were 12-inch tall. But I was mistaken. These boards are 16 foot long and 1 inch thick. So, and the width that I need. So I had to think on my feet and make sure that I wasn't overbuying. Because I was going to get originally 3 12-foot poplar boards, but I don't need 3 16-foot 16-foot poplar boards. So I had to do some quick calculations in my head and make sure that I wasn't overbuying. So I just bought 2 of the 16 footers, and I had one. I had them cut down one of them to 4 foot. So I got 2 boards that are 16 foot long, 1 inch thick, 10 inches wide, and I got one board that's 10 inches wide and 4 foot long. And then I got one sheet of plywood and a couple 2x4s that are going to be for the bracing on the table. And that should be enough to complete the project. Now I'm just going to rough cut everything down to a size that's manageable, because you can't really put these through the table saw safely. So I'm going to rough cut them down and rock and roll. This is the hexagon table that we're going to build today. As you can see, it's going to be made of poplar and stained to this golden oak color. It's going to have this symbol on the top embroidered in green fabric, and all the drawers are going to pull out to use as cup holders, sort of like that. Let me show you better with this one. Sort of like that. Anyway, so I had originally did 2 designs, this triangular base here and this hexagon base, and we decided to go with, actually the client decided to go with this hexagon base. So that's what we're going to build today. And I've got an exploded view here of all the different parts, the feet, the base, the pedestal, the well, those are not really wooden parts, those are actually the drawer slides there. These are the drawers, each individual drawer, and then the bracing, pardon me, just regular 2x4s on this bracing, and then the sides here, whoops, the sides, and the top part of the hexagon, and underneath that is going to be a plywood subtop. So I've got all the parts listed out here, and I'm getting ready to rough cut everything so that I can do some planing and joining and getting all the boards ready for final cuts and assembly and all that good jazz. This is just a view of, an exploded view of the drawer. It has a divider in the middle for a cup holder type of deal. These are the cleats, which you can't really see on this view here, but I decided to put cleats in this pedestal right in this area on the inside to help attach it to the subtop here on the base. And as you can see, we're going to do some dados on the pedestal for this shelf. that's in the middle of the pedestal. And those are all going to be mitered to 30, well, all the pedestal pieces are going to be mitered to 30 degrees, so that will all fit together nicely. These are the doors, which are just a tad bit shorter than the pedestal pieces. And that's the plan, so that's what we're going to be building. Continuing with the hexagon table, I'm going to now lay out the marks on the plywood base, well, the plywood undertop as it were. And I've already rough cut all my parts from the stock that I bought yesterday, the 1-inch poplar and the 3/4 inch poplar. Now I'm going to do this. So first of all, what I've got is an artist triangle, 60-degree artist triangle, and I've got my one of these here bevel gauges. So what I've done is I've set the triangle on the bevel gauge, and I've matched this up exactly, or I've matched the bevel guide up with the triangle. And the reason for that is because I'm going to need to slide this along the edge, and this has a nice lip on it that you can slide along the square edge. For my plywood, I know that I've got 2 square edges. This is the edge that I rough cut down. It's probably not perfectly square, so I'm not going to go off that edge, but I'm going to go off this edge. And since it's a hexagon, well, first of all, I'm going to mark a line from the square edge up to this side at 39 5/8. Okay? Because every edge here needs to be 22 7/8. So I've marked a line from, like I said, from the square edge to up here at that 37 5/8 mark. Let me double check it one more time. Sorry, 39 5/8 mark. And the reason for that is because that's an easy way to get the hexagon. I've got this stick here with the flat edge, and I've marked my side measurement, which is 22 7/8 from the square end to here. And I'm going to take my bevel guide and I'm going to run it along the edge here with one corner of the stick here on the edge of the board. I'm going to do it on this side. I'm going to do that until the mark edge that I've got on this side over here comes in contact with the other side, which is right there. Okay? And then take my pencil and draw a line right there. And that's going to be my cut for one side. Then I can take, the next side is very easy, because I can take this corner here that I've just marked, line it up with that mark, and I can just pivot this side until it comes in contact with my mark that is, again, 39 5/8 from the bottom over here. So now that angle's all found, make my mark. And on this side, line it up with this corner here, and line this mark up with that line. There we go. My pencil mark. On this side here, I'm going to have to use my triangle to find my angle. Yes, there we go. Line up with my point there, use my triangle, put that on the mark. There we go. Now I go from my point there to the corner that's already drawn up here. Now I can go from this mark here to that mark there, or to the end of the board there. It's pivoting there. There we go. Let's check it. Just because crazy like that. And that is exactly 60 degrees. Bam. Looking good. Draw my mark. Next, my hexagon. Now all I have to do is cut it out. Well, as I was making my jigsaw cuts, I realized that the method I used to cut the hexagon was just a little bit not as efficient as it could have been. The mark that I made from the square side to the 39 5/8 end, I could have just cut that on the table saw. So that's what I ended up doing. And then I cut the other two sides with the jigsaw. So now those two sides are rough, and I'm going to straighten them out with my router using a pattern bit, the bearing here on the top of the bit, and a straight edge. And I've got my marks lined up, and I'm just going to make the cut. Here we go. Now I've got all my 1-inch pieces ready to go through the planer because they were rough from the lumber. Only one side was straight ripped. So all the 3/4 inch pieces were surfaced on 3 sides, so I don't need to put them through the planer. But I'm going to put everything, all the 1-inch pieces. All the 1-inch pieces planed down to their desired thickness. Now I'm going to plane down these 2x4s because the plan I made calls for these to be 1 1/4 inch. Although I've got some friendly neighborhood noise, I'm going to go ahead and try to explain what I'm doing here. Now I've got all the 1-inch boards planed on both sides. I'm going to cut the top pieces for the hexagon down to their desired width so far, and then I'll use my miter saw to cut all the miters and fit them to the hexagon to make sure they're exactly perfect what I need. Now I am at the stage where I'm going to cut all the miters with the top pieces around the hexagon. They're each 30 degrees. But just to be sure, I'm going to cut them one at a time and fit as I go around, just to be 100% sure. I've made a test cut on a piece here with the same bevel guide that I had before, not moved, and that's dead on. So that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut my first piece, which is at the desired width already, which is 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and make my first bevel cut. Then I'll line it up and mark my second one and cut it, and so on and so forth as I go around. This next bit is a little bit of a complicated, or not so complicated, but tedious procedure. So let me try to explain as best I can. I'm making the bottom bracing out of 2x4s. So what I've done is I've cut these little blocks here. Each one is 6.5 inches, and I've cut 6 of them so that I can make these 3 different types of assemblies. And I've got them all clamped up here. Okay, so they're just going to cross in a hexagon pattern, and I'm going to do half lap joinery to get them all joined up together nice and sturdy. So like I said, I've clamped these together, and I'm going to put them on the this is the top piece. It's going to be the actual table where the embroidery is and all that good stuff. But this is the bottom of that. So I've gone and made sure, of course, that this edge is equidistant to this edge here. And then the same over here. This edge has to be equidistant to this corner, from this corner to this edge. Okay? I've done all that already. Now, what I did was, once I got that set, and I just took my pencil and I drew a line on all four of these, on all four sides of the 2x4s here, and then I move on to the next one. So I got this one, and then the second one, and then the third one, and that gives me a pattern on the table here that I can use to cut my dados in the boards. See the dados here on the boards. I've done a number of test cuts, and this is basically the start of it. So there'll be two here, and then another two going in a different direction for the other bracing to lock in. And all I did to get that was I just laid it down here and mark it out with my pencil. And then I know that the boards are 3.5 inches wide, so my dado is only going to be 1 3/4 inches tall. And so, like I said, I've done a number of test cuts, and I'm going to go ahead and make a real cut. And then we'll see if that matches up to the layout lines here, and if it does, then I'll move forward. Just going to line it up here, and like this. And then I'll line up the other side. That's two cuts for the dados there. I need to make that one there. But anyway, so I'll finish that one, and then I'll flip the miter to the other side, and I'll do these two as well. Now I've got this Hexagon base made with all half lap joinery in the middle there, so it all fits together like a puzzle. And now I got these 6.5 inch blocks, which I was using before. I used them to take each assembly and draw the pattern out on the bottom here. But now I'm just putting them in the ends, and I'm going to screw them down temporarily so that when I go to make the places for the sides of the table, and also so that the drawers will work properly, because these have to be exactly parallel. So these have to be tacked in place 6.5 inches exactly, so that all that will line up in the end. If you don't, it's going to be a nightmare. So I'm doing this, and then I'm going to do all the sides, which will be 4.5 inch sides, and then I'll put this, line it up, make my marks so I know exactly where to cut the ends off of this assembly here, and then move on from there. I've got the braces, or the brace, all screwed together temporarily. I've cut just a marker. I've cut a marker that's 3 1/4 inches wide, and I'm just going to mark out where this brace should be located on the outside of the top here. Then I'm going to use that to cut all my side pieces, which are just rough length right now. Use those marks to cut all my side pieces. So I'm just going around each corner and lining up with the miter, make my mark, because the opening for these drawers has to be 6 1/2 inches. So I've got a board, like I said, 3 1/4, and I'm marking from the miter outside. Now that I've got all the marks laid out on the boards here, I've put the framing up here, and I've got one edge lined up where my mark should be here. So I'm just going to lock that down, not super tight, but I'm just going to clamp it down. And I'm going to rotate these boards just a bit until they line up with the rest of them. Then I'll have thickness of one of my boards on just another piece of scrap. Take my pencil, if I can grab it here. Thank you. And all I have to do is mark. I've got the 30-degree miter cut in this scrap, so I know that's exact. All I need to do here is line it up with where I'm going to have this side piece. Then I'm just going to make a mark on the inside of the board, just like that. And that's where I'm going to make the miter on all the framing pieces all the way around. And I think it's a wise choice as well to go ahead and mark out your boards, and then also your frame, your top piece here, so that when you go to match it back up, just in case it's off a little bit here or there, there's no trouble matching it back up. So I'm going to put a 1 here and a 1 here. That's all I need. Bam. I'm going to go finish the rest of my marks. Move on to now you can see that I've cut all the miters. Thank you. Cut all the miters on the frame pieces. And now what I'm going to do is take my side pieces that I've cut a miter on one end on all of them. Cut a 30-degree miter on all one end of all the side pieces. Now I'm just going to show you how to mark out the cut here. Line this end up here with the inside edge of this frame piece here. Just feel it, make sure it's flush, and then just take the pencil on this right side here and just mark it like that. Now I'm going to mark there. Take my combination square, take it all the way up to the top. Then take my bevel guide, it hasn't changed from the very beginning. Line it up with that little mark here. Bam, and make that mark. Now I'll take this to the miter saw and cut it. Bam.